All right, well, let's get started. First, I want to begin with a couple of housekeeping notes. We will be keeping everyone muted to ensure that we can hear our speakers. Also, you're welcome to have your video on or off, but please know we are recording the session and we'll be sharing it with those alumni and friends who were not able to join us. Following our speakers, we're going to be doing a Q&A using the chat function. To get everyone familiar with using it, I like to have everyone put in their class year into the chat right now, if you don't mind. Or if you're not a grad, feel free to put in your affinity with the college or university. Great, I see those starting to populate. Thank you so much, and we're so happy to have you all represented. If a question occurs to you while Dean Widener or Dr. Gaskins are speaking, feel free to go ahead and put it into the chat. I will be moderating and make sure it gets asked when we do get to the question and answer session. And now I'd like to begin the program by sharing a message from Vice President of Alumni and Donor Experience, Jennifer Heisey.
Welcome to today's program, one of many offered by your UC Alumni Association. Before we begin, it's important for me to say thank you for joining us. By actively participating in our offerings and experiences, you are harnessing the power of your alumni network. There are Bearcats all over the world, more than 315,000 alumni in 127 countries, which makes virtual programs like this so rewarding. These challenging times do come with a silver lining. We are more connected than ever before, creating boundless opportunities. The University of Cincinnati and each of you is stronger and better positioned because of our lifelong connections through our alma mater. We love providing opportunities like this one, where alumni can learn, network, and give back. So settle in and enjoy today's program. And if you like what you hear today, please share on social media using the hashtag #ThyLoyalChildren. Thanks again for joining us. Go Bearcats!
Well, thank you so much to Jen, who provided that video for our event. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dean Widener to kick everything off.
Too much muting involved here. Okay, here we go. Well, thanks, Ann, and welcome everyone to our virtual town hall meeting. It's great that you were able to join us, and so we can update you on UC and the college, but I can't wait to be able to see many of you in person again. That's always the highlight. And it's by far the best part of my first year at UC was being able to meet many of you, travel throughout the country, have conversations, and I never tire hearing about your stories and your bonds to UC and the college, and how proud you are to be a Bearcat. So again, thank you for coming. Certainly these last 6 months have been difficult times for the entire world. And when we shut down in the spring, there were so many unknowns surrounding UC in particular and higher education in general. And there's still a lot of uncertainties, but we seem to have weathered the storm and gotten through the worst of it. Fall enrollments were our biggest concern, since the academic progress of our students would have been severely impacted. The budgets would have been further depleted by tens of millions of dollars, and the economic lives of our faculty and staff would have been devastated. So fortunately, we were able to put together an ambitious return to campus plan that safely brought students back to campus in record numbers. As of now, there are more students studying at the University of Cincinnati and the College of Engineering and Applied Science than at any point in our history, and that is exciting. So for example, we surpassed last year's record number with a total of 1,263 first-year students, and that's an increase of 91 students or 7.8%. So again, when we were fearing huge declines, a 7.8% increase is incredible. This brings our total undergraduate enrollment to a little over 5,200 and a total student. Again, both numbers, so that is amazing. As excited as we are about landing the class, none of us would claim that the current campus experience is optimal. However, we continue to serve our students, poised to come out of this crisis stronger than ever. Example of the progress we've made in the face of this pandemic, new research grants for this fiscal year, which ended in June, exceeded $20 million, which is a 33% increase over the previous year. That's an incredible tribute to the hard work and excellence of our faculty. We're also able to hire 8 new faculty members, including Department Head in Biomedical Engineering, Tom Palavich, and an Associate Dean for Research, Gautam Pillai. These hires will enable us to continue our momentum in both the laboratory and the classroom. As impressive as those numbers are, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that our 3 top priorities always will remain our students, and our students. It seems obvious, but sometimes amidst all of our concerns, we lose sight of why we are here and why our job is so important and so meaningful for each and every student. We are here to impact the lives of the next generation of leaders, one student at a time. The focus of each student is so important because if we lose anyone and they never finish college, that's a generational setback. Therefore, the questions that we're asking as we emerge from this severe economic crisis is where can we make strategic investments so we can better fulfill our dual mission as a research university of educating students and creating and disseminating knowledge. And if we do those 2 things, we'll fulfill our 3rd mission, which binds those 2 together, and that's to serve our community, both Cincinnati and around the world. So I hope you'll be able to, help us fulfill that mission and stay engaged with the college. This virtual town meeting is a great way to do that. And we love to hear from you in this venue or any other way that you want to stay connected and let us know how we're doing and how you can help. So now let me turn things over to Dr. Whitney Gaskins, our Assistant Dean for Inclusive Excellence and Community Engagement in the College of Engineering and Applied Science. She'll update you on some of the initiatives we've been pursuing to make the college a more inclusive and welcoming place to work and to study. Dr. Gaskins is the only female African-American faculty member currently in the college, but I hope that's a number that we can increase soon. She earned her Bachelor's of Science in Biomedical Engineering, her Master's of Business Administration in Quantitative Analysis, and her doctorate in Philosophy in Biomedical Engineering and Engineering Education, all from UC. I don't want to steal her thunder, but her role as Assistant Dean, Dr. Gaskins has revamped our Summer Bridge program to increase student support and retention, as well as developed and strengthened partnerships with local area school districts to aid in the high school to college pathway. She serves as a principal investigator for both our Choose Ohio First program and Ohio LSAMP grants. Through these grants, the students receive competitive scholarships and funding for professional development workshops, which help them prepare for STEM entry into the STEM workforce in their careers. In 2019, she was recognized by the Greater Cincinnati Chamber as a Black History Maker. She was a recipient of Dr. Terry Kershaw Faculty Excellence Award and Excellence in Teaching Award from the University of Cincinnati for innovative honors course titled Sticky Innovations. She was also inducted into the 40 Under 40 class of 2019. In 2020, she was named a fellow in the 2nd cohort of I Aspire Leadership Academy, a national leadership program aimed at helping STEM faculty from underrepresented backgrounds ascend to leadership roles at colleges and universities. She also received the 2020 Marion Spencer Equity Ambassador Award from the University of Cincinnati's Office of Equity and Inclusion. So with further ado, Dr. Gaskins.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dean Widener, for the introduction. It's a lot to say about the work that we do, but I want to give an overview of everything that goes on in the Inclusive Excellence and Community Engagement Office. I am a proud Bearcat, so doing this work really feels great because I remember navigating my own journey through the College of Engineering as a woman, and as a Black woman at that. I know that we had some work to do, and I'm so happy to report out on some of that work and changes that we've seen. For over 34 years, there has been a program dedicated to helping underrepresented students in the College of Engineering specifically. I even went through that program. In 2018, however, we reorganized and tried to work on our scope to make sure we could have a broader reach for inclusivity. So our office started with underrepresented minority students, but we now also hold programming for women in engineering, as well as veterans, students with varying abilities, and LGBTQ populations. So we're really excited about that work because, again, we are solely focused on ensuring that we have a climate that's both welcoming and inclusive for all those who say that they want to be engineers. We provide a space so that way they can be successful engineers. Our work is not only supporting undergraduate students in the College of Engineering and Applied Science, we do a lot of work in the community. So we have a program coordinator dedicated to working on initiatives like our CPS Strong. I'm not sure how familiar people may be with the Cincinnati Public School District, but there are some schools that we know that do not offer physics and or chemistry, which are both needed to be admitted into the College of Engineering. And to be a good community partner, we have started a program that helps students get those credits. It counts for their high school credit so that they can apply to be future Bearcats. We're very proud of that partnership because it opens the doors for the local community, especially at a university that bears the city's name, to ensure that all that are in the city of Cincinnati have an opportunity to graduate from UC. Outside of community partnerships, I want to talk about the retention that while they're here. So some of you may have been familiar with the E3 program. We still have that program. It is the Emerging Ethnic Engineers program. Our students still participate in the Dr. Edward N. Prather Summer Bridge program, where they get to come as incoming freshmen to ease the transition from high school to college. It really helps with understanding the rigor that is expected in the college courses, and also builds a cohort and a community. We have the learning community throughout the academic year to ensure students have a safe space. Our Women in Engineering program is rather new. We've had the program in the past, so it's not the first time that we wanted to have dedicated effort to our women matriculating through the college. We've revitalized that and brought back the Women in Engineering Speaker Series, a mentorship program, as well as working with industry partners to develop scholarship opportunities for women specifically matriculating through our college. We're really excited about also working with our faculty and staff. We have started an Equity and Inclusion Council where we talk about issues that may be barriers for students matriculating through our college. And we help with trainings, and we put some things in place in the college to ensure that we are being inclusive and thinking of all of our stakeholders. And we're really happy to report that we are making great changes. We poll our students. We do focus groups with our students at the end of every academic year, and they are noting the changes in the feel of the college, and it's been in a positive direction. I should say that we don't just focus on undergraduate students either. We do have our graduate student arm. We work with making sure our graduate students also have a safe space, and we do special recruitment with a partnership with the GYM Consortium to ensure that we do bring in more underrepresented students into our graduate programs, both master's and PhD.
Thanks, Whitney. That was
No
great.
problem.
Yes, thank you, Dean Widener and Dr. Gaskins. Now we're going to switch to the Q&A. If anyone has questions for Dean Widener or Dr. Gaskins, please add them to the chat. While people are adding their questions, I'll start with a couple that were sent in ahead of time. So the first that we got asked is about what is currently happening with co-op and how does that compare to our pre-COVID numbers?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, co-op has been challenging, with the uncertainty out in industry. But our co-op office has worked extremely hard in making sure that our students stay on schedule. So we actually had the 1,132 CES students that were placed. That represents a 98% placement. Now that's a little bit misleading because what we had to do starting in the spring was develop what we call EEP programs. So we have ways of keeping students engaged in professional development and giving them projects that can count towards their co-op. There were 161 of them that we had to place in these programs. They're still extremely beneficial and keeps them, again, professionally engaged. But if you remove those, we placed about 85% of our students in paid co-ops, which again, in previous years, 97, 98% of our students would be placed, similar to this year, but almost all of them would have been placed in paid co-ops. In comparison, though, again, this is a very difficult employment year. DAP, which also has mandatory co-op, they were only able to place 60% compared to our 85. So, we're happy we're able to keep this many students on track, and we're certainly hoping that this will improve going forward.
Great, thank you. Second question that was sent in advance is, can you share how many classes are being held face-to-face versus online or hybrid?
Yeah, so university-wide, about 20% had a face-to-face component. In the college, though, we had a lot more face-to-face, mainly because of our labs and so on. So if I just look at fully face-to-face, and again, that's mainly labs, that is also almost close to 10-15% in labs. However, about another 35% is some kind of hybrid mode. So probably 40% again has a face-to-face component. So for example, I'm teaching one of the sections or co-teaching one of the sections of the freshman engineering, first year engineering experience, and that serves about close to 1,200 students, or a little over 1,200 students. So we have many sections. Each section has 72 students in it. We were able to configure that space, and there weren't many on campus because they had to be flexible spaces in order to maintain social distancing. But we were able to find a number of spaces for the freshman sections where we split them in half. And so my section meets Tuesday, Thursday. So 36, half of the students or 36 come to campus on Tuesday. Then the other half come on Thursday. So they get a face-to-face experience. We're able to see them, meet them. They're able to work in groups again by maintaining distancing. And then the other 36 that are remote are doing that via Zoom. And it's synchronous. So they're listening to the lecture. And what really, I think, has turned out to be very powerful is Zoom allows you to break up into groups, into small teams. And so we have groups of 4, whether you're in class or external, you're working in groups, working on problems, probably for 75% of the class. And we're able to go and move around to different rooms. I can move, and the TAs and our undergraduate peer mentors can move from room to room and ask questions and see if they're getting stuck and move them along. So even when they're actually remote, they are very engaged. And so again, even though 40% have a face-to-face component, we do feel that we're engaging our students very effectively. And we were particularly concerned about not engaging the freshmen. And I think that's worked out very well, at least in the freshman engineering course.
Thank you. Now we have a question, I'm guessing mostly directed towards Dr. Gaskins, but I'm sure the Dean will have something to share as well. As asked, how can alumni, or what can alumni do to improve equity and inclusion within CAS?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities for our alum to help and engage with equity and inclusion in CAS. One is, if you are not a donor to a scholarship fund or a program, I would encourage you to do so. Every dollar helps a student get through. And scholarshiping is one area that we know is a need, and we would love to have alum give back. If that's not your thing, you're like, I'm just starting out, I don't have enough to give, that's okay too. We have mentorship programs that we would love to have our alum engage in, because the honest conversations on what we can do, we would love you to share with our students, what it's like to be in industry, what can I do to prepare so I can get this job? And sometimes it's just plain life, adulting 101. Alum, that's really helpful. Those things are really helpful when we talk about the retention piece of equity and inclusion in the college. There's other things too. So when I talked about community engagement, I shared one program, but we do a wide variety of programs. We have a robotics competition as well, and we do school visits. At any point, if you would like to engage with our community engagement efforts, we would love to have you. The more people can share the good stories that they have about their time in CAS, the better. That really helps spark students to say, you know what, maybe that's something that I want to do. We would love for you to participate in a community engagement effort, especially because we target, again, Cincinnati Public Schools and also the women's schools here in the city. So we would really love to have alum give back to those. We also have opportunities for you to do listening sessions. So tell us what happened when you were here. If you are part of one of these underrepresented groups, we only know what we know. So if you have a story to tell that can really help us make an impactful change, please don't keep it to yourself. Let us know, because we would hate for the story to be told and not to us, where we could actually make an impact or a change. So those are some quick things that I think alum could help us do here in CEAS, and I'm sure Dean Widener might have some options as well.
Yeah, no, those are great. I guess the only thing I would add is, we do try to, as we engage students in teams, we emphasize how important a diverse team is to bring in diverse thoughts and experiences. And sometimes we get pushback of, oh, that's all, why is that important? Or that's only important at a university. And, when I get down to industry, I don't really need to worry about diversity. Getting the message from the outside, and we have some wonderful speakers lined up for our freshman courses, as well as others throughout the curriculum, to just let them know how important diverse teams are, how important it is to understand and appreciate different cultures and different backgrounds and different experiences that people bring to your team. And so sharing those and how important that is can really resonate with students. So in any way that our alumni can engage with our students helps reinforce our messages.
Thank you both. Next question is, what were your biggest challenges at CAS now due to the pandemic? And how are you trying to deal with them, especially in the support of the international student population?
So what was the first part of that, Ann? I'm sorry.
What are the biggest challenges at CAS that you're faced with now due to the pandemic?
Yeah, so it probably is the international group that is one, the most challenging, and two, still our biggest unknown. Even though our undergraduate population is up, our graduate population is severely down, mainly because international students weren't able to get visas. We did provide them a lot of options for the fall. The ones that were here, of course, could come on campus and participate in whatever mode was appropriate for their curriculum. Others that couldn't get to campus, they could take online. So again, 60% of our programs are online, and probably a higher percentage certainly at the graduate level. However, especially the first year graduate students did not want to come in an online setting. I mean, one of the reasons they want to come to the U.S. is to have that experience, to have that international experience, and engage in the campus. So most of them, the other option we gave them is to defer to the spring. And as of now, the ones that are deferring seem, quite intent on deferring, and hopefully the visa situation will improve and they'll be able to get here in January. And if that's the case, instead of students taking their course load in fall, spring, we're arranging things so that they can take their courses spring, summer. And therefore, over a 12-year period, we should be in pretty good shape with even the graduate enrollments. Again, if the students that say they are interested in deferring to January do indeed come. And getting those 2 semesters is critical, because then that allows them to go off on work assignments if they've got their I believe 30 weeks of coursework in place. So we're doing a lot of shuffling, again, especially at the graduate level, to make sure that we offer a full slate of courses in the summer, where typically the graduate courses in the summer are fairly sparse, but this summer will be a challenge to get those up and running. And that's particularly in computer science, where we have a significant number of graduate of international graduate students. Another challenge on the undergraduate level is making sure we're staying engaged with the students and making sure that they don't have issues that we're not aware of. And when you see them in class every day and you can talk to them, you tend to learn other things that they're dealing with, whether it's mental health issues, or just the struggle of being away for the first time, especially for freshmen, and engaging, making sure they're fully engaged in the experience. That's difficult, and that's a challenge. And we're trying to do everything we can to monitor our students, but I'm sure I know it's extremely difficult on them. And I hope, even especially on the mental health side, that they can get through this.
We have a follow-up question in regards to improving equity and inclusion and some of the remarks made. Asking if there's data that you'd like to share supporting the direct increase of value in choosing more diverse teams, or more diverse and inclusive teams. They're commenting that the students are math and science oriented and will not internalize a thing or a value without explicit fractional factor analyses. And then as a research organization that values race, one would hope we wouldn't shy away from research to meet the vast majority of students where they are.
Yeah, I don't know if we have quantifiable numbers. At least I don't have them, but there are bodies of research out there for you to explore if you would like. And I will try to post some into the chat for you to read. There's some great articles in the Harvard Business Review that talks about the value of diversity on teams. I think the message that you can share are more about how companies have been impacted when they included diversity on their teams. I'll share one story that I think is really important. Especially now in the pandemic. So washing hands in the soap dispensers, you put your hand under the soap dispenser and you would hope that soap would come out. Those who developed that software tested it and it worked wonderfully. But then we found that it wasn't actually working for all people, because when they tested it, they forgot to test it with those who had more melanin in their skin than others. And so heavily melanated, like people like myself, wouldn't be able to actually get the soap out of the dispensers. And it took a while for people to realize that. And that in itself could have been a huge difference if we would have just had a diverse team and had someone that had more melanin in their skin to test the soap dispenser. Though that's just a small example of how that impacted industry, because it's the same thing with the paper towel. You think you put your hand under and the paper towel will come out, but it wasn't working for everybody. But if you would have had diversity on the team, it may have worked. You can also share stories in the car industry. I worked at Toyota before I was in the academy, and we talked a lot about how do you put seatbelt placement and controls on the dashboard in certain cars, and they have to take into account that women, obviously on average, are a different size than men, and coming up with the right formula for the right car to ensure that you are in fact making the controls in the right space. Those are things that engineering students completely identify with, because these are the things that we're hoping that they'll work on in some shape or form. When you innovate, you need to ensure that whatever product that you're developing works in the world in a broader scope. There are quantitative data, so I don't want to say that, oh, it doesn't exist. This is a huge body of research about the impact of diversity on business, especially in innovation. And again, I will try to share links in here, but this isn't just a viewpoint of we hope that people believe in diversity. We have proven examples about how diversity impacts changes. There's even research about how CEOs, when our female-led companies are their productivity has increased. There are reasons behind all of that. And again, we can share those links, but yes, people identify with the story more than the data. And I would encourage you to share those types of stories about the impact of diversity on teams when it comes to innovation and productivity. I see.
Thank you, Dr. Gaskins.
Yeah, sorry, I read the chat.
Oh, it's okay. And I think we can definitely share out with the attendees links to those quantitative data for those that are interested. I know that there are people who definitely prefer that version, and we're happy to provide that. The next question we received in the chat are students who did not get paid co-op jobs given financial aid to compensate?
So we did, not specifically, and others maybe on the chat can weigh in, but we do try to come up with projects where we do have a paid component to it. So not all of the ones that are in EEP, and probably most of them do not have a paid component, but we are working on developing projects and for students that can help us and get paid as well. One of the aspects we are developing that's maybe less for the current pandemic, but more to provide more opportunities for students is research co-ops, and extend that to give 1 or 2 experiences for our students who are trying to decide whether they're interested in graduate school and research and a research career. And there we are developing a program that, again, not only gets them into the lab and understanding what research is about, but providing pay for that as well. So they're not just doing that without compensation.
John, this is Alan.
Yeah.
I think about a third of those EEPs had some kind of compensation associated with them. Now, it wasn't as much as they'd make on a full 40 hours a week for 15 weeks of employment, but there was some compensation associated with them, varying amounts.
Okay, thank you.
The next question we received is, given the increasing student population, are there any plans for facility expansion at CEAS?
So there are some plans that are going on, and some of the capital projects were put on hold with the budget situation, but there are some plans at the university to expand classrooms, for example, classroom spaces, which will directly impact the college. Old Chem is slated to be renovated, which again will provide space, not just for the college, but by having more classroom space will benefit us. We do need to renovate, especially roads, and make that a more useful space. So that's certainly important. We do have some off-site space that we're looking at to increase lab space for faculty as they grow their research, as they bring in more graduate students, and then relieve some of the pressure on the buildings we have on campus. So I would say in the next 3 or 5 years, those are going to be the way we're going to handle the increasing student population. But certainly longer term, we're working on plans to figure out how to get funding to add another building. And so that is certainly in discussions at the university on where that would be, what exactly that need would be, what kind of mix of classroom, office, lab space, and so on.
Next question is, are the increases in enrollment broad-based, or are some departments seeing greater growth?
It's so some of it we're trying to monitor and control, because some of it is we have to be careful that there are co-op opportunities and employment opportunities for these students. All of the programs are growing, so that's a good thing. They're all very healthy. But the computing field is certainly the biggest growth area. So computer science in particular, and some of the programs around those. So we're developing certificate programs in data science and AI that will impact the other majors, but certainly the computing area is by far the fastest growing area. The other one that is probably going to grow faster than most of the other degree programs is mechanical engineering. And so we do have the Jobs Ohio grant, which many of you may have heard, that was announced literally a week before the pandemic shut us all down. The Jobs Ohio grant is specifically to increase the number of students that are going into the computing fields, and also mechanical engineering is going to be impacted by that as well. The main metrics of that grant is how many degrees are we awarding in the computing fields and in mechanical engineering. And those degrees are at the master's, bachelor's, PhD level, but also, again, certificate programs. So those are certainly the big growth areas, but every program is growing.
Thank you. Next question. In light of COVID and the pandemic, how are students and faculty responding to disruption in extracurricular activities, especially student professional societies and competition teams?
Yeah, I mean, again, this certainly isn't ideal, and no one likes the loss of a lot of these extracurricular activities. We know that students learn a lot in the classroom, but they learn so much from each other and engaging in these opportunities, and they are just not there. I mean, whether it's sporting events or, again, professional societies. Each society is handling competitions a little differently. Many of them are trying, a lot of the conferences themselves are going virtual, so there's not even opportunity to travel to them. However, many of them are doing virtual competitions. So student groups are meeting and with a scaled back or modified design challenge for the competitions. They are engaging in that. They, of course, also have to be very careful of how they do their design challenge or their competition challenge. So they have to be social distancing and wearing masks. And sometimes that's extremely difficult to build a car when you can't when you're the only one that can stick your head under the hood at a time. So those it's a learning experience as well. They're learning how to do these designs and do these competitions with an incredibly big obstacle. So engineering is design under constraint, and this is a big constraint. So those activities are still going on, but yeah, by no means the way it has in the past, and hopefully this is the only year it'll go on like that. And others may chime in if they're directly involved with some of those competitions on how they're handling those. I know the Chemi car, for example, has to record their Chemi car and submit it for the competition.
This is Mandy.
Great, Mandy. Thank you.
Sure. I'm an assistant dean in the college. I advise some of our student groups and a lot of competition teams. I know Kitty was on some of them back in the day too. A lot of the CAECM ones have gone virtual. Anything that has like a hands-on component, like Concrete Canoe, I think that's more likely to be canceled than made virtual, or to only have the mixed design or something like that, be a step of the competition. I would say also networking events. It's really, I think, going to be a ongoing burden on our students not to have these opportunities to reach out to industry in a more personal manner, whether that's only being on virtual career fairs and things like that, not being able to go to like an industry group's meeting or an event. It's harder to convince them to do a virtual event on top of all their virtual classes. And I do think that as this drags on longer and longer, it's going to pile up. I mean, our students who are out on co-op this fall made connections this spring when things were more normal in February at the normal career fair. And the students who are searching for spring co-ops are having to do that in this virtual environment, and there are fewer opportunities. So I think keeping our students in the loop, if you have opportunities for them to attend something, and we can encourage them to do that, I think that's an important way to reach out as well.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you, Mandy. We also got a question asking if we could expand on how CAS is handling in-person lab classes such as chemistry, physics, the ones that are required for graduation.
Yeah, so others may know a little bit more about what chemistry and physics are doing in particular. I know there's certainly accreditation concerns to make sure they're tracking that and achieving learning outcomes. In our labs, in the college, the labs, what we're trying to do is have them meet more frequently, so they can so instead of maybe having 20 people in the lab, 5 groups of 4, you may only bring 1 or 2 group at a time and just rotate them through the lab throughout the day, and they can actually do the lab. Others are recording the labs and being able to do things virtually, or they're collecting the data for you and sending it to the students, so the students have to do the analysis of the data, but they may not be turning the handles on all the experiments. And then again, it's a mixture, so it's not that they're doing 100% of it virtually, but there may be 1 or 2 labs in order to keep the density down, where they're just doing the data analysis, or they're watching the TA in the lab collecting the data. They're instructing the TA how to do it. So those are a variety of ways that they're going after it. But by and large, most of the students in our labs are able to at least get a few hands-on experiences while minimizing the density in the labs themselves.
John, this is Alan.
Yep.
Chemistry, for example, is doing their a portion of their labs in person, and the rest of them, the rest of the experience, the lectures and stuff, virtually. Just as an example.
And I don't know if you have other examples of what's happening in the college from a lab standpoint, but
where for mechanical, for example, we're running labs with about 5 students in the lab at a time because of COVID spacing, obviously. So they're doing more frequent, smaller lab experiences and trying to keep the students separated, obviously. So, the same thing's going on in other departments.
Thank you both. We're getting a couple of comments/questions, and I'll paraphrase a little bit. Basically, given the recent news that the college has been in, how much leeway does an instructor have on what they say in class? and how is the college considering addressing this following the incident?
Yeah, so that's certainly, my first experience with social media on that level, that blew up very quickly, and I think a lot of the message got distorted as it went out. So let me give you some context. So Thursday night, the student contacted me, and his main concern was his message that he received from the instructor was that he was not going to be given credit for the lab because he didn't show up due to quarantining. And of course, the student was worried because he said, I was told by the university to not quarantine and not go to class. And now I'm being punished for not going to class. And that was the biggest concern. And the additional concern he had was he felt that the professor's language was saying, the reason I'm not allowing you to make up this lab is because it's the Chinese fault that we have this pandemic, and therefore and not my fault. Now that didn't seem to be what the case was, but that was what the student was worried about, that he was not only being punished, but he was being punished from a political standpoint. So it was the punishment that was the big worry. That's what I told him I would look into to make sure that he was being treated fair, because we do have a return to campus policy, and we expect faculty to be flexible in how they deal with students that are either tested positive or have been in contact with someone, and that they are being instructed to stay away. And if we don't give that consistent message, and we don't support students that way, then we're going to have a problem, and we're not going to be able to maintain classes throughout the semester. I mean, we want to continue to teach. We don't want to have to send everyone home like we did in the spring. And so that was a huge concern. Now, it got wrapped up into a lot of other issues and languages, and therefore that was turned over to our office. We have a process for anytime students feel like there's harassing conditions, and right now that process is being followed, and our office of equity and access is looking into that. So I'll leave it at that, since that investigation is underway, to just make sure that wasn't what happened. But again, the big concern was from a health standpoint, and not just because a professor said something in a class.
I did want to talk about the inclusion of ethics in the engineering curriculum. That is something that we take seriously, both ethics and equity and inclusion. And so prior to any incident, we've been working hard to ensure that those touch points are in our curriculum. And I know more to come on that, but that's been underway, and we are dedicated to ensuring that our students graduate with equity and ethics as part of their CAS studies.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Gaskins, for addressing some of his specific questions. The next question we have in the chat is hiring of new faculty continuing under COVID-19?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, kind of my opening remarks, we were able to hire 8 faculty in the college. So that was great news. Some of it happened, a lot of some of those offers went out before our hiring freeze. But even after that, we were able to get permission to hire faculty. Again, it was really sketchy, probably the worst, the grimmest outlook was probably in April, where it looked like we may have to take a 20% budget cut due to huge cuts in our state subsidy, and again, not having any idea what was going to happen with student enrollment in the fall. And so at that point, when we were back in April, it looked like we were not going to be able to hire anyone beyond who we had already made offers to. The budget improved over the summer, and we were able to make some other offers that were absolutely critical. And this year we do have searches underway. Again, we're going to have to monitor our budgets very closely over the rest of the semester, the rest of the year. Again, a big unknown that I mentioned was graduate enrollments. If the graduate students come here in January, we'll be in pretty good shape. If they don't come, that will be, we'll have to certainly reevaluate our hiring. But I'm pretty confident that the budget will look, again, certainly much better than it did in April, and even how it looked a month ago. And we'll be able to make hires, maybe not quite at the pace that we were planning going into pre-COVID, but we will be able to make hires. We have some retirements coming on. One of the this has been a very challenging time for faculty to put courses online. And some of the senior faculty, or maybe we're a year or 2 or 3 years away from retirement, they feel, I'm not really in the mood to learn everything I need to do to get everything online. So we've had some retirements, maybe a little more earlier than we would have, and that's going to help us hire going forward. So yeah, we do have hiring in almost every program, or at least we're recruiting in every program, and we'll see if how many hires we'll be able to make come springtime.
And our final question in the chat is asking about what recruitment for 2021 looks like. Are there different requirements given the shutdown and then testing for COVID?
So it's certainly too early to tell what our enrollments will be in the next spring, and certainly how students visit campus and campus tours and so on will be dramatically different. But we're confident that we'll be able to have another strong class. As far as from probably the biggest impact of COVID from an application standpoint is standardized testing. So there's a lot of standardized testing is getting canceled, and so UC has made the decision not to go test optional. So you do not need a standardized test for the fall of 2021. That will, of course, significantly change how we evaluate applicants, and we're still working through how we're going to screen those. What are the metrics we're going to use? Obviously, we've got to make sure they're strong in math, and we'll have less data to go on. But we're confident that we can look at this holistically and still have an excellent class, a very talented class, and enrollments will be very strong. And if others have anything else they'd like to add on that front, please chime in.
John, this is Alan again. Where most universities are doing virtual visits for interested students and parents, and that's what we're doing. And we've prepared a lot of videos of laboratories and videos of faculty speaking, so we can give students kind of the same experience they could get. We've done walkthroughs and videoed walkthroughs so they could see what our labs look like, and our computer labs and our facilities. And we've done a number of town hall meetings and live chats like this with prospective students and parents. So it's not perfect, but most universities are going through the same thing and dealing with this in the same format. It's just going to be different for all of us, but we have every indication that we feel it's going to be strong.
We did get one last question that I want to fit in since we have a couple of minutes left. Have the research grant sponsors generally extended grants while students have been away?
I'm not sure I fully understand that, but so most of the grant, so obviously this is a national issue, and so funding agencies have been very understanding and have worked with the principal investigator on deliverables, and in case those can't be met, and so they've been very flexible on end dates and timelines and when the funding comes in and so on. But our research actually, by and large, did not slow down. There was probably maybe the month of April, where we didn't have anyone in the labs, and so there was some serious issues about meeting timelines. But once May rolled around, we were able to return to research, and that was the only ones left brought back on campus was the research groups in a very limited way, but ones that had active research grants. Graduate students were typically on campus or in town, so even international students, they were already here. So they were able to continue their research. Some were able to do it remotely when it came to, again, data analysis or reading the literature. They could go into the lab and collect data. So by and large, the research has stayed on more or less on schedule. And again, with funding agencies making the necessary accommodations when they had to. But graduate students continue to make progress towards their degree. They're getting their research data. They're writing their papers. The faculty have probably had some more time analyzing that data and writing grants and submitting grants. That may be been a silver lining in this. But by and large, research has stayed on task.
Well, thank you all for your insightful questions. It was wonderful to have everybody join us. If anybody has other items that were not addressed or that they want to discuss further, feel free to reach out to me. You'll be receiving a follow-up email tomorrow, and it has my contact information, but it's real simple. It's just ann.terry@uc.edu. And I'd be happy to connect you with people, or if you want to dig deeper, get you the answers to your questions. We would also love to hear feedback from this event. So any ideas you have for other events or opportunities. And also, as Dr. Gaskins mentioned, it's great for you to consider either volunteering, giving back, whether that's financially or with your time. It's all very much appreciated. We have lots of volunteer opportunities in the college, resume reviews, career coaching, and even in recruitment. So please consider those. Thank you again for attending, and hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Anne, for putting this all together, and thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Whitney, for your participation. Appreciate it.
No problem. I hope everyone has a good evening. We look forward to working with all of you, helping our students.
Yes, thank you all.